All right, everybody, we are back this week for UFC Vegas 105, Emmett versus Murphy, with a main event in the featherweight division between knockout artist and powerful puncher in Josh Emmett, taking on a technician in the featherweight division on his rise toward title contention in Lerone the Miracle Murphy. Will the Miracle be able to pull off just that in Las Vegas? Or will Emmett send those dreams crashing down and turning to dust with one powerful strike? Without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everybody, we are back after last weekend's card, and, I'm not the happiest with the way that the predictions played out. I think we went 6-6, pretty much swept the entire main card, and Ronaldo Rodriguez just didn't fight with the game plan that we expected him to. I don't think anybody expected him to stand and strike with a guy who was a much better and cleaner striker, but it is what it is. Maybe he got rocked and, just couldn't close the distance, but even after he got rocked, he got a takedown at the end of the first round, so I don't know what that was. I feel like he gave that fight away to Kevin Borjas, but, we explained it on the podcast that he could easily get dropped and KO'd if he played around on the feet for too long, and he did. He got dropped like 3 or 4 times, never really went for that many takedowns. When he did, he got one, and then he tried again, didn't get it, and then he kind of just went away from it. I don't know why. I'm not sure. Really bad fight IQ there, but it is what it is. Manuel Torres did what we expected him to do. Brandon Moreno with the decision. Torres with the KO in round 1. Yeah, we profited a little bit on the betting side. I ended up cashing out on a 5-leg parlay after the first 4 legs hit for 155, and then coincidentally, the last leg hit with ease. It was Manuel Torres to win in round 1 or round 2, and it would have paid out 404. I say this all the time. If you feel like you need whatever the cash out is, then take it. If you feel like you want to risk it, go ahead. But I have the luck where if I cash out, the last leg hits with ease. If I don't cash out, the last leg loses. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But, yeah, like I said, good on the main card. Really solid predictions. Prelims, not so much. The lock of the week for the underdog. Underdog pick of the week. I don't want to steal from, Jacob's idea. But, yeah, we had Julia Palastri. I couldn't remember her name. I'm sorry. And, to be honest, she looked really good in that third round. If she would have just picked it up in the second round, stuffed the takedowns a little bit better, she would have won that fight. She almost TKO'd her in round 3, and we did have a play on Palastri in round 3, but it is what it is. We got to get back on track, and we're hoping to do so this week. So we'll kick it off in the bantamweight division with Victor La Mangosta Henry taking on Pedro Falcao. This is an interesting fight because on the feet, the volume, the output, and the overall technical striking is going to go to Victor Henry. We were one of the few who picked him against Edson Barbosa. They do look similar. But Raoni Barcelos, we picked Victor Henry as a huge underdog in that fight, and he looked good. Very solid performance there. We played him against Meerschaert. He lost, but it was like a no contest due to a groin strike. So it didn't go the way we thought. We picked him via TKO over, I believe it was Hani Yahya. That was a pretty easy pick. Everybody kind of expects the fight to go that way. With Falcao, he fought in the UFC against Victor Hugo coming off the Contender Series, and he lost the fight, but he didn't look terrible. He pushed against the cage, had a lot of cage control, got a takedown, had some ground control as well, landed some shots of his own in the striking, but was kind of outgunned. Falcao's the underdog here, and he should be. I could see him pulling off a submission. I'm not going to lie. I think he probably would win most of the scrambles on the ground, even though Henry is trained under the catch wrestling of Josh Barnett, the War Master. He has good jiu-jitsu, he has good scrambles, but he got caught in the guillotine by Charles Jourdain, and that one just really left me with a sour taste in my mouth, considering the fact that that was kind of the only way that Jourdain had to win this fight, was to make him uncomfortable, have him shoot and grab the guillotine. He went for it like 4 times before he eventually ended up getting it, and then he still got caught in it. I don't like that so much going up against another guy in Falcao, who is a very solid grappler, who has very good jiu-jitsu, decent enough takedowns, but the takedowns in wrestling of Falcao compared to a fighter like Charles Jourdain? I don't really know, because Jourdain doesn't really have any wrestling. He mainly gets those submissions off of making the opponent panic shoot and then catching their neck. I feel like Falcao has the better wrestling. He probably would be able to take down Victor Henry, but I don't think Henry's easy to take down. It's just once he's on the ground, you might be able to find a way to take his back. You might be able to find a way to grab the neck and look for a submission. And we also don't know what to expect from Falcao, because he hasn't fought in a long time. I mean, he fought Victor Hugo, looked okay there. But other than that, we haven't seen much of him, so we don't know what kind of fighter we're going to expect. Last fighter we had with a pretty long layoff was Simon Oliveira, who just got knocked out by Martinez last weekend. And in this one, I think Henry probably wins the minutes. Henry probably wins on volume. But if it's a mainly grappling matchup, I give it to Falcao. I'm going to take Victor Henry to avoid the grappling, stay on the feet, and just outpoint Falcao over 15 minutes. If you're on the side of Falcao, probably want to play by submission, because I think it's live. He could get it. He could get his neck. He could get a sub. He could find a way to grab that submission in the scramble. But I think Victor Henry outpoints him. I think he moves around. I think he lands some good shots. But it wouldn't surprise me if Falcao got the sub. But give me Victor Henry to win third round TKO over Pedro Falcao. I think he could slow him down and might be able to get him out of there. You know what? No, we'll go decision. I'll play it safe. Let's go decision. Victor Henry, 29-28 unanimous decision, winning 2 out of the 3 rounds, and just, outpointing him, outstriking him, and stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to go with. Like I said, I think Falcao is live for the sub. He's a good grappler. But, yeah, give me Victor Henry to win 29-28 unanimous decision. I think he outpoints Falcao and is just a little bit more volume and output on the feet. All right, up next, we got a battle in the welterweight division between Reese Skeletor McGee taking on Daniel Frunza, who's coming off of his Contender Series win over Vadim Kutsi as a plus 180 underdog. I'm going to keep this short and sweet, man. Never been impressed with Reese McGee. The only fight I played him in was against Chidi Nzechukwu, because at that time I thought Chidi was a quitter. As long as you get out of the first round, he'll slow down and you can break him. Chidi has been the bane of my existence. He has cost me a lot of picks, especially that Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos pick in his last fight, winning via TKO. Yeah, that one just really... I still don't think Chidi's that good. I don't. And I know he won that fight. Credit to him, he proved me wrong. But, McGee came back later on in the fight against Chidi. Looked like maybe he was going to pour it on him. And then just got outpointed, outstruck, beat up in the clinch, and lost a decision. In this one, I think Frunza's the rightful favorite. I'm surprised he's actually not a bigger favorite. I like the way this guy strikes. I like his defensive responsibility. He knows when to disengage from the grappling and get back up to the feet. He knows when to let his opponent up if he has him hurt, and he seems to have a pretty good idea of what's going on inside the cage. Solid high guard, good counter striking, solid power on the feet as well. In the fight against Vadim Kutsi, he rocked him super early in that fight. Good hooks, good straight punches, solid work in the clinch, can work kicks and shots to the body as well, has decent shot selection. The only thing I would worry about is like the UFC experience, quote unquote, of Reese McGee. But I mean, he doesn't have a win in the UFC. So yeah, he has experience, but he hasn't gotten a win. I think Frunza is too crisp. I think Frunza is too technical for a guy like McGee. I think he picks his shots better. I think he will disengage from the grappling, because I would expect McGee to start shooting and looking to tie up once he gets cracked and once he gets hurt. And I would expect a TKO from Frunza, but we have seen McGee, tough it out last and come back in the third round. He did come back in the third round against Ange Lusa when he was getting dominated, but I think Frunza has better cardio than Ange Lusa. I think he has better understanding of MMA. I think he picks his shots better. He's the cleaner striker, and he'll know that, if McGee's panic wrestling, he'll probably either look to land some ground and pound or just get back up and disengage and get back to where he wants to be, which is in that kickboxing range. And I think Frunza puts out Reese McGee towards the end of the second round. I'm going to go with a late second round TKO for Daniel Frunza. I like him. I think he makes the right decisions, and I think he's going to get that standout performance in his UFC debut. Now, again, Contender Series, you never know, because some guys come in and look great, some guys come in and don't look good at all. But I think Frunza is going to be on the positive side of that argument, and I think he's going to come in, outstrike Reese McKee, avoid most of the grappling, maybe land some good ground and pound, and at the end of it, get Reese McKee out of there at the end of the second round. So give me Daniel Frunza, late second round TKO over Reese McKee. All right, up next, a battle in the women's flyweight division between Diana Belbita taking on Dione the Witch Barbosa. You got Diana versus Dione. I'm going with Dione. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this breakdown because there's not much to break down. This girl got submitted by Molly McCann. Dione Barbosa, much more high-level grappling, much more high-level jiu-jitsu than a Molly McCann. She does tire out. She will slow down. If Belbita can survive early, start to land the volume on the feet, avoid getting taken down, and piece her up, maybe she could win late because Barbosa's cardio is not the best. She will push forward, look for takedowns, hunt submissions heavy, decent power in the strikes on the feet. I think the volume striking goes to Belbita. She throws a lot of volume, she throws a lot of shots, but her grappling defense just is basically non-existent, to be honest. And I think against a girl with as high level of jiu-jitsu as Dione Barbosa, I would favor the Witch to cast a spell on Belbita and eventually find her way to get a submission. I would think she probably gets an armbar. We've seen Belbita get subbed with that submission before, get caught in an armbar before because of how long, lanky, and tall she is. Belbita is a good-looking woman. I'm not going to lie. Belbita is a pretty girl. Kudos to her for stepping in here, but I think this is kind of the sacrifice to the Witch in this UFC card. So give me Dione Barbosa to win. I'm going to go with a first-round armbar submission. I think she takes her down, tenderizes her, and rips her arm off and gets a win inside the UFC. Give me Dione the Witch Barbosa, first-round armbar submission over Diana Belbita. Again, no discredit, no shade, no throwing shade towards Belbita. I just think she's outmatched here, and I think the grappling is where the win is going to take place. So Barbosa, first-round armbar submission over Diana Belbita. But if it gets late, could make it interesting. I just don't think it does. All right, up next, we got a battle in the bantamweight division between Dangerous Davy Grant taking on Daniel Willie Cat Santos. I'm going to be honest, guys. This is one of the hardest fights on the entire card for me to predict. We picked Ramon Tavares as an underdog against Davy Grant, and he did knock him down. He did hurt him, but he pretty much got outstruck and outboxed overall. Leg kicked, outpunched. The reach and length of Davy Grant was just too much for Ramon Tavares, who pretty much is primarily a boxer when he steps into the cage. This is another fight where I understand why Grant is the underdog, but this is where UFC experience could definitely play into the hand of a Davy Grant. Even against John Castaneda, where Daniel Santos pulled out that TKO victory and won, he got rocked a bunch of times, got caught with 2 or 3 head kicks, which pretty much put him out, got pushed up against the fence, almost KO'd. Willie Cat Santos came back, pushed back John Castaneda, but Castaneda is primarily not going to like the pressure. He got pushed back, he got beat up to the body, he got destroyed inside the clinch and eventually hit with a knee right up the middle that put him down and gave Willie Cat the TKO. Then Daniel Santos comes in against Johnny Munoz Jr., a fighter that he technically should have finished via TKO. I thought that was a good matchup for him as long as he could avoid the submissions, avoid getting put into submissions, and don't get me wrong, he won the fight, but he played guard for the majority of that fight. Sat on top, landed some okay ground and pound. And that was kind of an issue on Munoz Jr.'s part because he was just pulling guard, shooting and pulling back, and didn't really have anything to offer Santos on the feet. This is a fight where I think Santos could win. He probably causes more damage in terms of visual damage, and I think the visual damage is what could push the judges towards picking Daniel Santos in this fight. I could also see Davy Grant, popping the jab, popping the 1-2, switching stances and landing that beautiful switch stance, right hook to the body and the left hook to the head, just like how he knocked out Jonathan Martinez. I think he could land that here, and I think he could put Daniel Santos out. We can compare, similarly, Daniel Santos, Felipe Dos Santos. They're kind of a similar style of fighter where they come forward, they like to get into wars, they like to get into brawls, but if you can play it safe, if you can play it smart, if you can use your advantages and win the fight and keep them away, they are very hittable, and this is another fight where I think Davy Grant could start to put the beats on Daniel Santos. He could start to pick him apart, could start to beat him up. 12-2, 16-7. This is a tough one, too, though, because Davy Grant is an older fighter. He's getting older, but he did look very good against Ramon Tavares. I think Daniel Santos is probably going to have the better cardio going into the later rounds. I think Davy Grant has more power on the feet to where he could hurt Daniel Santos like we've seen him get hurt before. I like the body work of Santos, but Davy Grant also rips very good shots to the body. I think this is going to be the fight of the night. I think this is going to be a war for as long as it lasts. I really don't know, guys. I really don't know. The odds don't make sense to me. I would make this a pick'em. I know Santos is like a 2-1 favorite right now. I could see your case for taking a shot on the underdog in Davy Grant because I think he could win this fight. He pops the jab well. He has good power. He uses decent footwork. He has good jiu-jitsu and grappling. He might be a little bit outmatched there. I'm going to say the fight hits the scorecards, but both men get hurt. Both men get knocked down and come back. I'm going to say Daniel Santos wins a split decision. 29-28 split decision for Daniel Santos. I think the UFC wants Davy Grant to win. I think the UFC wants Santos to win. Davy Grant, like I said, is getting older, but I would not be surprised if Davy Grant cracked the chin of Santos and knocked him out. I'm going to go with Santos, though, to win 29-28 split decision. I just think he does a little bit more, and the damage he's going to cause on the face of Davy Grant might sway the judges in his direction. So give me Daniel Santos to win 29-28 split decision in this fight. But again, really hard fight to pick and one of your fights of the night for sure. All right, next fight up is going to be in the flyweight division. You've got a battle between Buday Osbourne taking on Luis Gurule. Now, we picked Gurule against Nick Piccinini in the Contender Series. We also picked Jack Duffy to beat Nick Piccinini in the Contender Series. I feel like we got both of those picks right, but we did only get one, and it was Gurule in the last week of the Contender Series. Buday Osbourne's a guy who just, fought with Luis Rodriguez, basically knocked him out, almost submitted him. He hurt him extremely bad. And you go and you look at Luis Rodriguez's last fight where he just lost, and you're kind of sitting there like, man, Osbourne got taken down, he got controlled, got out-wrestled. He cracked, he did crack Rodriguez, but look at what just happened to Rodriguez this last weekend. Does that look that great on Buday Osbourne? I don't think it does. I think Buday can win this fight by, how he wins all his other fights. Keeping the distance, keeping the range, keeping Luis away from him, popping the jab, using front kicks, long-rangey shots, 1-2s down the middle, circling left and right, finding that outside angle, front kick to the body, move around, 1-2. I mean, he does have power, but I think the style of Gurule is going to wear on Buday Osbourne. It's going to slow him down. And, Buday did have that decision victory via split decision over Charles Johnson. That looks pretty good. That's probably his best win in the UFC. And he did basically what he has to do in this fight. Keep Gurule away. When he shells up, hit him with uppercuts and hooks, throw front kicks to the body, inside and outside low kicks. And this is another fight where the UFC experience could loom large. But I think the style of Gurule is going to slow down Buday Osbourne the later we get into the fight. I think Gurule is going to walk forward. I think he's going to take some shots early, but I think he's going to start to slow him down. He's going to start to stuff the takedowns of Osbourne. He's going to start to strike off the break, start to land that little 5 to the 2, little lead uppercut, rear overhand, knees, elbows off the break. The thing with that I like about Gurule is that he doesn't really overcommit on any of his shots. He's just kind of popping it out there. Boom, he finds what's coming to him. Pop it out, jab, 1-2, 5-2, elbow off the break, jab, another elbow, moving around, front kicks, inside and outside low kicks, stop the takedown, work his way back up to the feet. If Piccinini wasn't able to take down Luis Gurule, hold him down and get a submission, I don't think Osbourne's able to. Maybe he could, fall off the side, get an armbar, potentially could lock up a triangle, but I think Gurule probably defends most of that, and I honestly think the only way Osbourne wins this fight is probably a submission. Would be a triangle if he got one. I just don't think he gets it. I think Gurule is very short and compact. It's hard to get triangles on those type of guys because their arms aren't that long, and I don't think he can keep Gurule away from him for 15 minutes without him crashing in, backing up Buday, landing shots over the top, landing that rear lead uppercut up the middle, striking off the break, pushing him away inside the clinch, and just using that forward pressure and that little kind of pity-pat striking style with some hard shots mixed in between to eventually just break down Buday Osbourne. Now, the question is, does he get him out of there? Does he win by decision? I'm going to say he gets a third-round TKO here against Buday Osbourne. I like this guy. I like Luis Gurule. My buddy calls him Ja Rule. So I'm going to take Ja Rule, Luis Gurule, to get the job done here. Third round TKO over Buday Osbourne. I think he's just going to wear on him. I think Buday might have a good first round, but then that pressure, that forward movement, those combinations, that lead uppercut to the rear cross, the shots over the top, I think it's all going to come down to that, and I think Gurule's going to break Buday Osbourne. So give me Luis Gurule, third round TKO over Buday Osbourne in his UFC debut. I like him here, and I think he looks good in the win here. All right, up next we got a battle in the middleweight division between Torres Finney taking on the Ultimate Fighter finalist in Robert Valentin. I'm going to be honest, I think Valentin can win. He's got good jiu-jitsu, good grappling, and we've seen that he has powerful striking. I mean, even on the Contender Series, not on the Contender Series, on the Ultimate Fighter, he caught his opponent with that elbow right over the top as they stepped in. Beautifully timed elbow, knocked his opponent out cold. In this fight, I wouldn't be surprised if he won by knockout against Torres Finney, who is a short, compact fighter, but I don't think he'll win by submission because a lot of his subs would come via neck attacks, and I don't think you're even able to get to the neck of a guy built like Torres Finney. I mean, Finney is just compact, all shoulders and biceps, okay? Big chest, big shoulders, big biceps. You're not going to be able to choke a guy who's built like that because he doesn't really even have to tuck his chin because there's no neck. And on the feet, I think he probably is the better striker. I would say Valentin is the better striker, more variety, probably a little bit more dangerous on the feet as well. A long, rangy guy. I mean, 6'2". He's going to have the reach and length advantage, but the problem is, can he keep Torres Finney off of him? No, probably not. We saw him get dominated and out-grappled by Ryan Loader. I kind of see a similar scenario here where Torres Finney maybe gets hit with one or two shots, but eventually closes the distance, gets on the inside, takes down Robert Valentin, gets on top of him, lands ground and pound, lands hammer fists, and just beats him up. I could see a rear naked choke or an arm triangle. I mean, Finney, again, he's short, strong, compact. He might be able to just beat him up with some ground and pound and then grab an arm triangle, maybe grab a rear naked choke submission. But I honestly think in this fight, he's probably going to win by ground and pound. I think he takes down Valentin in the first round, gets on top of him, beats him up, gets in the mount, and just ground and pounds him until the ref pulls him off. I'm going to go with a first round TKO for Torres Finney in this fight against Robert Valentin. I think the grappling, the strength, and the top control is going to be the biggest difference here. Now, picking between a TKO and a submission is really where you have to make your greatest judgment, because I think he could beat him up to the point where Valentin gives up his back and gives up his neck and gets rear naked choked. I think he can beat him up on top to where he covers up and maybe he locks up an arm triangle. But I think he's going to be looking more for a ground and pound finish than a submission finish in this one. And I'm going to say he gets on top and ground and pounds Robert Valentin in the first round. Give me Torres Finney to get the job done here. First round, ground and pound TKO over Robert Valentin. I'd like to see Valentin win. I'm probably a bigger fan of his overall fighting style, but I just think the wrestling and the strength is going to be too much. So give me Torres Finney, round one, ground and pound TKO over Robert Valentin. All right, next fight up is in the middleweight division between Brad Tavares taking on Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. Honestly, I understand why Tavares is such a big favorite. He's going to be much better on the feet, much cleaner, much crisper, much more technical, and he has phenomenal takedown defense. That's pretty much the recipe against Gerald Meerschaert. Beat him up on the feet, stop the takedowns, don't allow him to get you on the ground, and just piece him up to a decision or potentially get a TKO. I think that both of these guys at this point have slowed down. I think that GM3, it's possible that he finds a way to win a scramble against Tavares, finds a way to take his back and gets a submission, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think the takedown defense of Tavares holds up here. I think Tavares uses his jab, uses the leg kicks, uses the 1-2s, and just kind of pieces up GM3 to eventually get a TKO. I think he knocks out Gerald Meerschaert. I wouldn't be surprised, again, like I said, if GM3 maybe like caught a kick of Tavares, took him down, but his takedown defense is still so elite that that's going to be very difficult to pull off. And on the feet, I think it's like 90% Tavares, 10% Meerschaert. On the ground, it's like 90% Meerschaert, 10% Tavares. And I just think every fight starts on the feet. And you know, if Tavares didn't have elite takedown defense, I would probably lean the other direction because Meerschaert can always lock up a sub. But I think this is pretty similar to the Edmund Shabazian fight, but I don't think Tavares is going to follow him to the ground. I think he makes the right decisions, and even if he hurts him, he's going to let him up so that he can continue to pound on him and beat him up. Tavares is a pretty smart guy, and I think that even though he's slowed down, I think he has such an advantage on the feet that even though he has slowed, I don't think GM3 is going to be able to get the fight to where he needs it to be in order to win, which is on the ground with him on top, looking for an arm triangle or looking for a rear naked choke. So I think he stops the takedowns, beats him up on the feet, and eventually gets a round 2 TKO. I think Tavares is too crisp and too clean with too good of takedown defense for GM3 to beat him. So give me Brad Tavares to win. I'm going to go Brad Tavares round 2 TKO. I think he just avoids the grappling and does what he needs to do and eventually gets GM3 out of there. I mean, GM3 got dropped by Reinier de Ridder. If there was 10 more seconds in that first round, I think RDR probably would have got a TKO. I think Tavares makes the smart decisions, beats him up, and then finishes him in round 2. Give me Brad Tavares to win round 2 TKO over Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. All right, up next, a battle in the heavyweight division between the former light heavyweight and Kennedy, the African Savage Nzechukwu, taking on Martin Buday. This should be an easy Kennedy win, probably by TKO, but Kennedy just makes weird decisions in there, and he loses to guys that he shouldn't lose to. I mean, going to a decision with Ovin St. Peru, with the ghost of OSP, and losing, yeah, I don't like that at all. That should have been an easy win for Nzechukwu. In this one, I think Buday's smart, decent striking. He might be able to hurt Kennedy, because Kennedy, I think, is a pretty fragile, has a pretty fragile chin at this point. But I'm going to go with the fact that at the heavyweight division, his durability will be better. He'll be more accustomed to taking the shots. And I don't think Buday hits that hard to where he's going to hurt Kennedy. It wouldn't shock me, but I just don't think he does. So I think Kennedy just kind of pieces him up on the feet, works the body, and then just beats him up in the clinch with knees and elbows, stops the takedowns. Maybe he threatens with a front choke. Kennedy has a good ninja choke. A good guillotine, so I think it's possible he beats him up and then grabs that ninja choke and subs him. I think a smart bet, honestly, like just for a few, like $1 or $2, would be Kennedy by ninja choke on BetMGM. I think that's something to take a look at in this type of fight, because I think if Buday starts getting pieced up, he will panic shoot, and he could leave himself open for that submission. But in this one, I think it's probably a TKO. So I'm going to go Kennedy and Nzechukwu to win via a first-round TKO. I think Buday's not on his level. But again, like I said, Kennedy makes weird mistakes, loses fights that he shouldn't lose, and then wins fights we don't think he's going to win. So I could see Buday clipping him with something and hurting him and getting him out of there. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to go Kennedy and Nzechukwu to win round 1 TKO over Martin Buday. But again, like I said, if he lost, I wouldn't be surprised just because he makes weird decisions and loses fights that he should be winning. But the pick is Nzechukwu, round 1 KO. All right, up next is a battle in the bantamweight division between Cortavious, Are You Not Entertained, Romious, taking on Chang Ho Lee. Listen, guys, I understand the people picking the side of Chang Ho Lee. We've seen Cortavious get knocked out by Ramon Tavares on the Contender Series. We saw him get his takedowns defended and get beat up on the feet by the standout kickboxer and Gaston Bolaños. That was a fight where we backed Bolaños as the underdog, defended the grappling, got up, and beat him up. And in this one, I think Chang Ho Lee just makes too many mistakes in the transitions in the grappling to beat a guy like Cortavious Romious. I'm very surprised that Romious is the underdog here. I don't think he's the best on the feet. I think the sharper technical striker on the feet is probably Chang Ho Lee, but I don't even think he's that good on the feet. I think this guy is just kind of wild. He can win on the feet, he can win on the ground, but I think Cortavious has such a big advantage in winning the positional battles on the mat and finding a way to get the takedowns, finding a way to work to the back, finding a way to hunt submissions, maybe get ground and pound off, that I think the wrestling and grappling of Cortavious Romious is going to win him the fight. And he throws a lot of power on the feet as well, to the point where he's probably outgunned in terms of technicality on the feet, but I think he has enough power to maybe hurt Chang Ho Lee and force him to kind of retreat or shoot, which is something he's not going to want to do with the grappling of a Cortavious Romious. People are going to come into this fight and just bash Cortavious because he lost as that big favorite against Gaston Bolaños. I'm not one who's going to do that. I'm going to say that Cortavious wins this fight. I've seen Chang Ho Lee lose scrambles. I've seen him give up his back. I've seen him get put in a body triangle. I've seen him shoot when he's in a bad position on the feet, get snapped down, get his back taken, get the body triangle put in, get threatened with submissions, get flattened out in a body triangle and beat up. I think Chang Ho Lee is going to lose this fight by submission. I'm going to say Cortavious Romious, round 2, rear naked choke, potentially an armbar, but I think he beats him up. Maybe Chang Ho Lee has a couple moments on the feet, but I really don't think this guy's that good. I don't think he's that good at all. And I'm sure he's made improvements, and there's always some questions with the durability of Romious. I mean, the way he got knocked out on the Contender Series, but I think Tavares' boxing is severely underrated, and he has a lot of power that I don't think comes from the side of Chang Ho Lee. So although I think Lee is the better striker, I think Cortavious could have some moments on the feet, maybe land some big shots, use the big shots to get into the grappling exchanges, find a way to take the back of Chang Ho Lee, and put in that rear naked choke and submit him. I could even see a ground and pound TKO where he gets that body triangle, takes his back, flattens him out, and beats him up with ground and pound. Either way, I think Romious wins. I think Romious wins inside the distance. I'm going to go with a second round rear naked choke submission for Cortavious Romious to get his first win in the UFC. I think we've seen holes in what I've seen on tape from Chang Ho Lee in the grappling. I think Cortavious could get knocked out, but I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to find a way to get into those grappling exchanges, find a way to take him down, find a way to take his back, find a way to flatten him out, and find a way to get a sub. So give me Cortavious, Are You Not Entertained, Romious, to get the job done via second round rear naked choke submission over Chang Ho Lee. I'm surprised Cortavious is the underdog. I really am. Because Bolaños and Chang Ho Lee, they're on different levels. So if that's really why the line is like this, it doesn't make any sense. Give me Cortavious Romious by submission. Round 2, rear naked choke. All right, now we're at the co-main event of the evening in the featherweight division between Pat Sabatini and Joanderson Brito. I mean, I think if you watch the UFC regularly, you can kind of tell which way the fight has to go in order for X to win or Y to win. If Pat Sabatini wants to win, he's got to avoid the early storms, avoid the big explosions, take down Joanderson Brito, get on top, and eventually ground and pound him towards a submission. I think Sabatini's only win condition is a submission. I don't think he survives for 15 minutes and can win a decision. And I think decision would probably move a little bit towards Joanderson Brito, because I think the control and the sub attempts would come from Pat Sabatini, while the damage, the big shots, the knockdowns, etc., would come from Brito. But I think Brito is good enough to avoid the submissions of a Joanderson Brito. or I think to avoid the submissions of Sabatini. But then again, common opponents, they both fought Jonathan Pierce, and, Pat Sabatini just kind of ran right through Jonathan Pierce, avoided the striking, landed some shots of his own on the feet, got a takedown, took his back, grabbed him in that body triangle, beat him up, and then grabbed that rear naked choke. And with Brito ended up getting that ninja choke against against Jonathan Pierce, but he got taken down, he got controlled, he got, held up against the fence, and he was pretty much getting dominated on the ground. And then Pierce made one mistake and left his neck out there, and he got caught in a ninja choke by Brito. Now, there is a chance Brito could win by submission, but realistically speaking, I think it's Sabatini by sub or Joe Anderson Brito by knockout. And I'm kind of going back and forth. I don't really know who I want to pick here because I could see either fighter winning. I could see this fight ending very fast. I could see this fight going longer than we expect, but the damage of Brito out trumps the control and sub attempts of Sabatini. I mean, I think that this is a really hard fight to predict, and a lot of people are going to come in here and just expect, Brito by knockout because we saw Sabatini get KO'd by Diego Lopez. Lopez is fighting for the title. We saw him get, almost knocked out by Jamal Emmers. Then he comes back and gets a sub against Jamal Emmers. And, look at what Emmers just did to Gabriel Miranda. I also think that was kind of a gimme fight for him, though. And I think we kind of explained that I picked Miranda by sub, but we knew that if it stayed on the feet, the striking was going to be too much. I'm really confused on this pick because I could see it ending quick. I could see it going longer than we expect. I could see a sub from Sabatini and a knockout from Brito. I'm going to go with Brito by KO because I think he'll be good enough to defend the sub attempts, and I don't think Sabatini can stand on the feet long enough to do anything significant without getting hurt and getting knocked out. So give me Joe Anderson Brito by knockout. I'm going to take Brito round 1 KO over Pat Sabatini. But I wouldn't be surprised if Sabatini got a sub. DraftKings allows you to do like the alternate method of victory betting. I think that's going to be your best bet for this fight in terms of if you want to bet it, would be Sabatini by submission and Brito by KO. I've had some good luck with those in the past, but based on a prediction, I'm going to go with the fighter who I think is more durable and the fighter who I think, against a fighter who we know historically is not durable. Give me Joe Anderson Brito round 1 KO over Pat Sabatini. I think he hurts him and Sabatini doesn't recover and he puts him out. Yeah, Brito round 1 knockout over Pat Sabatini is going to be the pick. All right, and now we're at the main event of the evening in the featherweight division between Josh Emmett and Lerone the Miracle Murphy. Josh Emmett's only way to win is a knockout. I could see this fight being similar to the Shane Burgos fight where, Emmett is getting outpointed. He's getting outstruck. He's getting controlled. And then, boom, he lands a big overhand and drops Murphy. And he could win rounds in this fight based off of the damage that he does. I mean, we saw Lerone Murphy get dropped by Dan Ige, almost get finished. He came back, survived, etc., etc. I don't see Emmett using his wrestling. He never really does, regardless of who he's fighting. So I think this plays out as a 15-minute kickboxing match. I think if it goes to the scorecards, I'd give it an 85% chance that Lerone Murphy wins. If it finishes inside the distance, I'd say it's an 85% chance that Josh Emmett landed that overhand right or overhand left and knocked out Lerone Murphy. I mean, that's how this fight's going to play out. Is Lerone Murphy going to be able to fight perfect for 15 minutes, or 25 minutes, and avoid the power? Is he going to be able to do damage? Is he going to be able to use wrestling of his own? Is he going to be able to chop up that lead leg? I kind of see Josh Emmett as just a one-trick pony. And that trick works very well. I mean, he was getting pieced up by Michael Johnson and then got hit with a big overhand hit him with a big overhand, knocked him out. He knocked out Bryce Mitchell, but that's a different kind of fight. I think Murphy's just too sharp for a guy like Josh Emmett. Could he knock him out? Yes. Do I think he hurts him at a point in this fight? Yeah, I'll say he probably rocks him at a certain point. But I mean, Emmett also lasted 25 minutes with Ilia Topuria. I mean, he got dominated. He lost every round, but he did last. And I mean, Max Holloway couldn't last, and neither could Volkanovski. So that is kind of a feather in the cap of Josh Emmett for lasting 25 minutes. And in that regard, I don't think Murphy's going to finish Josh Emmett, but I'm going to say he wins 4 out of the 5 rounds. Maybe there's one round where Emmett lands a big overhand and drops Murphy, and he wins the round based on damage. But I think for the most part, Murphy changes stances, chops the lead leg, lands his jab, pushes on the outside, cuts off Emmett, is kind of just poking and prodding, and I think he point fights his way to a 49-46 unanimous decision. Like I said, I think there is going to be a point where Emmett lands a big shot and, gets some sense of a win. Like maybe we think he's going to win, but then Murphy survives, stays on the outside. Emmett and Ige are kind of similar. I think Emmett hits harder, but I think Ige has more variety in his boxing. And I think Ige, has a little bit more left in the tank than a Josh Emmett at this point. I think Emmett could land a knockout. Like I said, we've seen Murphy get dropped by Ige, almost get finished, but come back. I'm going to say Lerone Murphy beats up Josh Emmett. I think it looks similar to the Edson Barbosa fight where, like I said, Emmett does some damage. He drops him. Maybe he hurts him, but Lerone survives, but that gives Emmett at least 1 round on the scorecard. So give me a 49-46 unanimous decision, 4 rounds to 1 for Lerone the Miracle Murphy. I think he's just going to outpoint Josh Emmett, be more technical, use more variety. Maybe he gets a takedown of his own in the later rounds if Emmett starts to slow down. But Emmett does have decent takedown defense. But yeah, I think Lerone Murphy, I think it's his time. I think he remains undefeated. Give me Lerone the Miracle Murphy to win 49-46 unanimous decision in the main event of UFC Vegas 105. All right, that's going to be it for my preview, predictions, and breakdown for, as we just said, UFC Vegas 105, Emmett versus Murphy. I hope you guys enjoyed my picks. Let me know your favorite picks, your predictions, your favorite underdogs, and anything like that in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parlays. Let me know how you did last weekend. And leave any comments that you feel like you wish to leave. If you want to sit here and troll and be one of those people that always complains every single time I drop a video, then go ahead, knock yourselves out, because we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And we're going to be one of the best predictors and analyzers of this sport on the YouTube platform. And that's just what it is. It is what it is, and you have to deal with it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I'm your host, Double M. This has been my preview, predictions, and breakdown for UFC Vegas 105, Emmett versus Murphy. And I'm out. Let's make some money this weekend on the event.